Crooklyn is a 1994 semi-autobiographical film co-written and directed by Spike Lee. The film takes place in Brooklyn, New York and the neighborhood of Bedford-Stuyvesant during the summer of 1973. Its primary focus is a young girl, Troy, and her family. Throughout the film, Troy learns life lessons through her four rowdy brothers, her loving but strict mother, and her naive, struggling father. A distinctive characteristic of Crooklyn is its soundtrack, composed completely of music from the 1970s. Except the hit single, Crooklyn, by the Crooklyn Dodgers, a rap crew composed of Buckshot, Master Ace, and Special Ed. A 2-volume release of the soundtrack became available on CD along with the release of the film. Similarly to School Days, Do the Right Thing, and She's Gotta Have It, Spike Lee appears in Crooklyn. He plays a young stoner named Snuffy, who likes to bully the local children. Crooklyn is one of only 2 films directed by Spike Lee to earn a PG-13 rating in the USA, the other being 1992's Malcolm X. Plot. In 1973, 9-year-old Troy Carmichael and her brothers Clinton, Wendell, Nate, and Joseph live in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood of Brooklyn. The children live with their parents, Woody, a struggling musician, and Carolyn, a schoolteacher. The neighborhood is filled with colorful characters. The Carmichaels' next-door neighbor, Tony Eyes, continuously sings. Snuffy and right-hand man are glue sniffers. Wick Powell is a war vet who lives upstairs from the Carmichaels. One day, the Carmichael children get into a dispute with Tony, who alleges that they are always throwing trash into his area. The argument escalates when Carolyn and several neighborhood children get involved. Tony is still yelling when Vic comes downstairs. Vic then punches Tony in the face. Troy, who has sneaked out to the corner store, sees Vic getting arrested as she leaves the store. The argument escalates as Carolyn yells for the children to turn off the television. Carolyn later turns off the TV. Clinton turns it back on. Carolyn grabs him for disobeying her and Woody grabs her and carries her out of the room. Woody drags Carolyn down the stairs and Nate jumps on Woody's back. The other children hold Carolyn and Carolyn hurts her ankle in the struggle. Carolyn kicks Woody out of the house. Woody brings flowers to Carolyn and the two reconcile. The family then decides to go on a trip. As they are leaving, a worker from Con Ed comes by to shut off the electricity due to an unpaid bill. The trip is postponed and the family has to use candles for light. A few days later, Nate and Troy travel to the south to stay with relatives. Troy stays with her cousin, Viola, who was adopted by Uncle Clem and Aunt Song. Troy has fun with Viola despite a dislike of Aunt Song and her dog, Queenie. On Troy's 10th birthday, she gets a letter from Carolyn. After reading the letter, Troy decides she wants to go home. When Troy returns to New York, she is picked up at the airport by Aunt Maxine and Uncle Brown. Troy later learns her mother is in the hospital and is taken to see her. Later that evening, Woody tells the kids that their mother is very ill and must stay in the hospital. The boys cry, but Troy remains stoic. In the next scene, one of Troy's brothers wonder if they have to dress up for their mother's funeral. The day of the funeral, Troy is approached by her Aunt Maxine, who tries to coax her into trying on the new clothes she's brought. Troy lashes out angrily, then announces that she is not going to the funeral. Woody explains that Carolyn would want them all together at church. At the house gathering after the funeral, Troy is withdrawn. Joseph comes inside crying, saying that Snuffy and right-hand man robbed him. Following her mother's wishes to protect her younger brother, Troy goes outside with a baseball bat and hits Snuffy, telling him to go sniff glue on his own block. Early the next morning, Troy dreams she's hearing her mother's voice. She goes downstairs to see her father trying to kill a rat in the kitchen. Woody then tells her that it's all right to cry, saying that even Clinton has cried. Troy concludes that it's good that her mother is no longer suffering. Troy takes on some of Carolyn's parenting duties and copes with her mother's absence by imagining that her mother is only away and can still write to her. Cast: Alfre Woodard, Carolyn Carmichael, Delroy Lindo, Woody Carmichael, Zelda Harris, Troy Carmichael, Carlton Williams, Clinton Carmichael, Sharif Rash, Wendell Carmichael, Chris Knowings, Nate Carmichael, Tessie Mack Washington, Joseph Carmichael, David Patrick Kelly, Tony Eyes, Jim, Jose Zuniga, Tommy Lala, Isaiah Washington, Vic Powell, Spike Lee, Snuffy, Francis Foster, Aunt Song, Joie Susanna Lee, Aunt Maxine, Vondi Curtis Hall, Uncle Brown, Manny Perez, Hector, RuPaul, Connie the Bodega Woman, Tiasha Reyes, Minnie, Patrice Nelson, Viola. Box office. The movie debuted at number 3 at the box office.